Yesterday during Satsang, I've started with the question, what is it that you want really? Pretty much everyone agreed on a state of being, joy, peace, love, whatever. So the question I want to ask today, according to you, is there any conditions that are necessary for this state of being? I see heads telling no. If it's a state, then yes. If it's a state, yes, indeed. To not put any sort of resistance? Yes. Someone said something about being relaxed. Well, actually, it's kind of connected what you both said. Resistance creates a tension. And indeed, relaxation creates an openness, and it's easier to touch what we already are. So it can help. But it's not necessarily a condition. We can have tensions, physical tensions, and still know that we're not this tension, and so it doesn't really bother us. There's a problem when there's identification. When we identify with this tension. So once we know that there's no conditions in particular to be joyful or in peace or in love, where is the problem then? It's about contempt. Contempt? What do you mean by contempt? To know how to be contempt? Yeah, that's true. There's 10 ethical principles in yoga. I'm not going to tell them all of them, but contempt is one of them. It's very important. Doesn't mean that you're resignated. That's not contempt. We need to respect ourselves. Who? Ourselves and others. But who is myself? Funny because you said myself and others. Yes. Yes, it's because through others we find the true self. Yeah. We need to stop seeking. Yes. I think that's the only thing that we need to do. What can we do to be good at not seeking? To be trustful? Yes. Yes, trust is important. And you think that to be, you need to do some sort of efforts? This movement of seeking, this motion of seeking has been learned ever since we were kids, very little. It's a program, a pattern from the mind that keeps on running after something. There's an idea that is subconscious that when I'll get that, then I'll be happy. That's the role of the mind. It's playing. The mind is there to organize and practical things, but we don't need to believe every beliefs that it's bringing up, like later on I'll be happy. You're talking about all the projections. Yes, indeed. So we think that there's gonna be an enlightenment later on, and it's another program. Enlightenment is only now. It's always now that it's happening. If there was only one practice, it's always now. Just see. See what makes you believe that you can't be the way you are right now. Those are beliefs. Yes, indeed, beliefs. Beliefs that we have those ideas that are rising up. Yes, and there's a lot of them. Can be a lot of them. There's beliefs that get more and more subtle, and from beliefs ensue some experiences, so we believe in them even more. Yes, indeed. The reason why it is important for discernment to come in. Actually, the more you realize and identify how the ego and the mind is working, the more the mind will change and adapt. It's going to get more and more subtle. Some of them already know that, clearly. Every time we tend towards something or a direction, we get caught. Every time. Every time we move a finger, we get caught. It's only by being now that we can't get caught, because mind is only time and temporal things. Take away time and you're all instantaneously awakened, enlightened. Because the moment you think you're not awakened, it's because you refer yourself to your past. And you see yourself and how you've been behaving up until now, and you think that it's not consistent with being awakened. It is only a belief. Indeed, it is absolutely a belief that we're not awakened. Yes, absolutely. As everyone is awakened and perfect and enlightened, there's no hierarchies. No one is superior or inferior to anyone. So some people have comprehensions and some haven't had them yet, but still there's no differences. There's only the mind that is creating differences and distancing and makes you believe that you're not awakened. Telling yourself that you're awakened is also a belief then? No. Well, no. But the way you're telling it, the way you're putting it, yes. Yes, it is a belief. The way you're verbalizing it, it is a belief. But in truth, it is not. It is a bit paradoxical, but yes. There's a difference between being and thinking that you are, between being what we are and thinking that we are what we are.
Il y a une
There's
différence entre toi, vraiment toi,
a difference between you, like really you, and the image that is
c'est pour ça qu'on dit le petit
put
moi.
onto you.
C'est-à-dire qu'il y a un petit
That's
moi
the reason why
fictif
we
et
talk
il y a un
about this
vrai
little me,
moi.
that fictitious little me,
Je
and
sais,
a
parce qu'il y a
real,
des gens
a
qui,
real me.
dans des enseignements, on dit il n'y a pas de moi. Mais moi,
I
je
know
dis qu'il y a
that
un moi. Il y a un
some
moi
teachings,
qui est
people say there's no
partout,
me's, but I
il y a
do
pas de
say
contours,
that
il y a
there
pas
is
de
a me,
limite.
and it's a me that has no limits,
Et ça,
no
c'est ton vrai moi.
contours, and that's
C'est
your real
le vrai
you.
moi.
That's the real me.
Dans un texte que j'ai écrit, ça, je fais référence encore au Satsang d'hier, quand j'ai vu la chaussure et que je me suis reconnu dans la chaussure.
Like I was saying in a text, when I saw the shoe and I recognized myself in the shoe,
pour l'expliquer, mais
it's just a way of putting
moi
it
est
into
le nom de
words.
cette forme.
But me
C'est-à-dire que
is
quand
the
tu
name
réalises
of that
le soi,
form.
quand tu réalises qui
When
tu es
you
vraiment,
realize
ta
the
nature,
self, your true nature,
et ben en fait, tu te rends compte que
you realize that
toi est
you
partout. Tout
is
est toi.
everywhere,
Ouais, exactement.
En toute chose et tu es toute chose.
in everything, and you are everything. No separation.
Et ouais, mental, ça se passe par le cœur, ça se passe pas du tout par la tête.
It does go through the heart and not the mind.
Je peux pas expliquer.
Yeah, I can't explain it. You can only go through the heart, really. There's no concept to explain it. For this real me to appear, you need for the false or little me needs to be taken away or needs to disappear for a while. So there are states where there's no more ego at all. Then you can come back to this relative level with time, space, objects. And then there's an ego that is coming back, that is rising again, but you can see that it's not you, but you see it through or from this big me, this high me that sees the little me. You can't. You can't be both in the conviction that I am the little me and at the same time realize that you are. It's like we are blinded by a tiny little thing. Like my hand is smaller than the room, but if I put my hand right there, it's bigger than the room. Well, the little me is exactly the same thing. It's really little, really small, but we focus so much on it that we can't see the vastitude of what we are. And the mind is also very little. It's nothing. It's just thoughts running around. But we believe it to be true, and we believe what it's saying and telling. And those are just programs, patterns. And look at it closely, you'll see that there's never new thoughts. All thoughts that come in are always... It's always coming back from... you've already heard that before. It's coming back from a place where you've heard it before.
La seule chose qui fait qu'on vit à partir d'un espace toujours nouveau, renouvelé, comme si c'était une naissance permanente, c'est que ça vient d'ici.
The only place where everything is it's new and fresh every time, it's only from this heart place. It's like being like a child.
Et plus on complique les choses, plus on s'en éloigne.
And the more we complicate things, the further we get from it.
Ouais.
On the intellectual level, it feels like we are evolving, though. So is it filled by the heart or... Well, actually, awakening is to drop this idea of evolving, of evolution. The self doesn't evolve. It's a very big trick or trap. The ego, when you talk spirituality to the ego, it visualizes a perfect human, like, that is a cool human that has swag. You know, that's going to say really important and wise things. Like a human, a superhuman. But that's not it. It's really to get out of the story, to leave the story, the progression, this idea of progression. Life is not. Well, depends, because from the life, the relative, from this relative perspective, yes, it seems like there's an evolution, but beingness doesn't evolve. Now doesn't evolve. Yeah, it does hurt the ego a little bit. So being would be the highest form of intelligence then. Depends on what you put behind intelligence. No, because you put some sort of analysis, a theory on it, and you try and catch it, grab it. Again and again, try and see what's permanent. Does space progress or silence progress in any sort? Progresses in any sort? Whatever is permanent doesn't progress. If it did, that would mean, if you could progress, that would mean that you're not already perfect being. It's really a mind illusion. It's just a belief that needs to be cut down. Do not believe it. Just don't believe it. So when we talk about sadhana, so what is it then? Why? Or it seems like there's a progression there. Yes? Yes, it does look like that. But the moment you realize your true nature, you realize that you've always been the same. So we can progress in the fact of in the very act of realizing what we are now. So we get more and more aware. It's not a progression, it's a comprehension. You have comprehensions or illuminations, but it's not an evolution. What appears to be an evolution is always connected to relative level. You can explain, theorize, define, whereas the self doesn't evolve. It's uncreated, it's unborn, it's unchanging. There's nothing like that in the self. There's always and still a sense of evolution when you're still in some sort of limits of lineage or teachings. I'm not saying that it's bad, but it's still it's still limited. When you realize your true nature, it all drops, and it's already there. It's done already. It unveils itself in a way. It's like having a diamond, having veils around it. And when you unwrap it, you realize the diamond has always been a diamond. Defocusing, it's about thoughts. It's related to thoughts. It's connected to it's the first step. It's about everything. All that is connected to whatever moves and fluctuates, that is not permanent. Because I woke up once with this word, defocusing. There was a message, I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't interpret it the right way.
sans s'en rendre compte, on focalise en
Without
permanence.
realizing it, we do focus all the time and really, really hard, and not just on what we see.
Sans t'en rendre compte, par
Without
exemple, là,
noticing it,
tu focalises sur ton enveloppe,
you focus
tu crois, là, sans t'en rendre compte, tu focalises et tu
on
crois
your
que
envelope, your body,
ce que
and
tu es s'arrête au contour
you
de ton
think
corps.
right now that what
Là, en
you
ce moment,
are
t'es en train de le
stops.
faire sans t'en rendre compte.
Without realizing it right now, you're thinking that what you are stops
C'est pas la
where
conscience qui est à
your
l'intérieur
skin
du corps,
stops. It's not, the
c'est le
consciousness
corps
is
qui est à
not
l'intérieur de la conscience.
within
Et
the
donc
body, it's the
l'expérience,
body that is within consciousness, and you do experience it if you look at it.
le corps, il apparaît parce qu'il y a une conscience qui le
The body
le
appears
voit,
because there's a
et qui
consciousness
perçoit et
that
qui
sees it
sent.
and perceive it and senses it.
Si tu
senses
fais,
it.
En méditation, souvent, je propose cet exercice
I
de
do
fermer les yeux et
propose
d'essayer de
this
trouver
exercise
un
often in
contour précis de
meditation.
toi-même.
Close your eyes and try to find a
Quand tu
proper
fais l'expérience, tu verras que tu n'en trouveras jamais.
limit to your
Tu ne peux pas
body
voir de contour
or
précis de
contours,
toi-même si tu as les yeux fermés.
like precise
Que tu,
contours
la
of your
vraie
body
expérience vécue
with
et
your eyes
directe,
closed. You'll see
c'est
that you
un
can't
espace
because
conscient avec des
your
perceptions
true
à l'intérieur.
and direct experience is a space with
Et quand je
perceptions.
dis espace,
And when I say
alors,
space,
parce que dans la
like I
voiture,
said to Gerald
j'ai eu tout d'un coup
earlier on,
je
when
me
we
dis, quand je dis
were
espace, je pense que
in the
comprend pas
car,
ce que je veux dire.
when I say space, I don't think
C'est
that
un
people
espace sans
get
distance.
what I'm
Quand je parle
saying,
d'espace, il n'y a pas de
what I'm
distance.
talking about. When I say space, I'm not
Tout ce
talking
qui
about
apparaît là en ce moment
a distance, a space
apparaît à
with
distance
distance.
zéro pour la conscience.
To consciousness, whatever appears to
Ça émerge
to
en
zero
même temps. Il n'y a
distance.
aucune
There's
différence
no
entre
distance
quelque chose
between
qui émerge là
something that appears
avec
and
en apparence
emerges
cette distance-là et quelque chose
apparently
qui apparaît
there
plus loin. Tout apparaît en
and
même
something
temps.
that appears very far away. It's absolutely the same to consciousness. There's no zero distance. It's the 0 centimeters distance.
Son unité, hein.
Pour qu'il y ait dualité, il faut unité.
To have duality, you need unity.
Un espace, il faut un non-temps et un non-espace.
To have time, you need and space, you need something spaceless and timeless, something that is formless behind. And when I say behind, it's just a matter of speaking, but so something behind that holds it together, and it's just being,
Sans chercher à
without trying to be perfect, without trying to do anything. It's just being now, beingness now. And we're always escaping from now in the end.
En
Yes.
tout cas, on en a la croyance.
Well, we believe it.
On a la croyance parce que c'est impossible.
This is a belief,
Tu
but
peux pas
it's
t'échapper d'être,
you
parce que
can't
c'est la
escape
nature.
being.
Par le mouvement, par le... non.
Well, in
Tu peux
motion
pas
or
pas être.
well, you can't not
Mais
being.
t'es toujours. Tu es quand
Even
même.
you are,
T'as
whatever
la croyance
happens.
de ne pas être.
So you
C'est
just
incroyable.
have the belief
Tu peux
that you're
réellement
not.
t'échapper de maintenant.
Can you really escape now?
Parce qu'on répète partout dans les bouquins.
Because we keep
maintenant,
repeating, we need to be now, we need to be
essaye
now. But
d'être
try
ailleurs que maintenant.
to be somewhere else.
Ouais, c'est difficile.
It's not possible,
Oui, mais ça se fait à partir de maintenant.
but it happens.
Tout ce que
Yeah.
tu penses, ça se fait à partir de maintenant.
But when we think about the past, yeah, but
Il y a
it happens
plein de
now
gens,
when
qui
the thoughts
pensent
arise now.
que la réalisation ou l'éveil,
People
c'est quand il y a
think,
plus
lots of
de-
people think
de
that
pensées ou quand on
enlightenment
pense,
means no more
ça
thoughts,
impacte le fait
or
d'être
then-
ou le fait d'être maintenant.
because people
Et
think
chaque
that
pensée
um,
émerge dans maintenant, dure
a
dans
thought
maintenant
impacts
et
being.
s'efface,
But in
s'éteint dans
truth,
maintenant. Il y a
just thoughts
on quitte
arises
la-
now.
la-
Thoughts
n'importe
arise
qu'il y ait des
now.
pensées ou pas.
Doesn't matter if there's
S'il y a juste
thoughts
à
or
faire,
not.
c'est un déplacement,
The one
entre guillemets,
thing to do
de
is to
l'identification
shift, so
au
to say,
mouvement
so to speak, from
à
this
l'espace
identification
qui
to
permet le
motion
mouvement. C'est-à-dire un
to
espace qui est
this
antérieur au mouvement,
space
là,
that
qui est
allows
souvent
this
petite,
motion,
l'écran
like the
l'écran blanc, puis
white screen and the
toujours
film
avec
being
les
projected on
images
it.
qui viennent devant. Il faut juste se rendre compte que
Just
ce
realize
qu'on est ne bouge jamais.
that
Maintenant
what
ne
we
bouge
are
pas.
doesn't ever move,
Ici ne bouge
now
pas, c'est
doesn't
toujours
move,
ici pour vous.
here never moves.
Ça peut être que là.
Et il n'y a pas plusieurs maintenant. Hein.
And there's no,
Même maintenant.
several nows, it's always one now.
Quand on dit le moment présent, par exemple, c'est pas vrai.
When we
L'instant
talk about
présent,
the
c'est pas vrai,
present
il y a pas
moment,
d'instant.
there's no, it's not true, it's not
Temporalité.
such thing as instant, because it's a temporality really.
Juste la présence.
There's just
Il n'y a pas passé,
present,
présent,
not
futur. Il y a juste la présence.
present moment, but
Exactement.
just presence. Yes,
Mais présence non personnelle.
but
C'est pas présence de
not
quelqu'un,
personal.
de quelque chose.
Mais il y a des moments de grâce où ça arrive, effectivement. Mais bon,
There are
que ce soit
moments of grace where it happens, those. But for it to be here permanently, it's quite hard. But I don't.
Oui, mais c'est ça. C'est ça.
We get
C'est
caught
que-
in a
c'est
way,
qu'on-
isn't it?
on
Yes, yes.
s'identifie tellement
We
que on
identify
y croit.
so much that we believe that we've
Le
lost
diamant
it.
est toujours pur et parfait,
The diamond
mais
is
il
always
prend la
pure and
coloration.
perfect, but
Si
it
tu mets
takes the coloration,
par exemple,
the
je sais
taint.
pas, une petite carte qui a été peinte d'une certaine couleur, tu mets la carte derrière, le diamant semble prendre la coloration de la carte qui est
The
derrière, mais le
diamond
diamant est toujours pur, est toujours
is always
immaculé.
pure.
C'est
It
juste,
just
faut
looks
juste
like it's
rester dans le
taken,
diamant pur et arrêter de
the
se
color
mélanger
that
avec
is
la couleur.
behind it, like.
Ou alors on peut se mélanger avec la couleur, mais on sait que c'est pas vrai, quoi.
Or you can actually mix with the color, but you don't forget it.
C'est possible aussi de rester comme ça.
Ah oui, oui, tout à fait.
Dans n'importe quoi, bien sûr.
So it's. Is it possible to be in that state all the time? Yes. It's pure consciousness that is emerging.
Dans le mental, ouais, c'est ça.
Yes. If you're not in the mind, yes. If you don't conceptualize it.
Donc les croyances tombent les unes après les autres.
Beliefs drop
Toutes les identifications
one after
vont
another.
tomber les unes après les autres. Et s'il y a un
Identifications
process, en
will
général, c'est
keep
comme
on
ça que ça se
dropping,
passe.
and if there's a process, that's
La
usually
croyance
how
je
it
suis le
goes.
corps, par exemple,
The belief
vient
I am the
bien
body, that
enraciné.
is really
Euh,
deeply rooted.
que vous ayez ou non,
Whether
par
you
exemple, vos deux bras et vos deux jambes, par exemple,
whether you
ça
have
impacte
all
le fait
your
d'être.
whether you have two arms and legs
Vous n'êtes
impact
pas moins
the
être
fact
parce
of
qu'on
being.
vous
You're
a
not
perdu un
less
membre.
being because you
C'est
lost
simplement être.
an arm.
Donc, peu importe les
You're
endroits,
still
on pourrait
being,
vous changer
right?
les organes, ça changera
We could
rien à être.
we could
Vous vous rendez
change
compte que
your
c'est pas une
organs
condition.
and you'd still be
Ça
being,
ça
right?
impacte pas.
It's not a condition, right? It's not
Après,
impacting
l'émotionnel, c'est
being.
pareil.
The
On a toutes
emotions,
sortes d'émotions dans la vie,
is the
mais
same.
finalement, on les
We
traverse, mais il y a quelque chose
we
qui
all
est
have
toujours
lots
là.
of emotions, but so
Je suis en paix, je
we
suis
go
en
through
colère,
them,
je
but
suis
so
angoissé, je suis
I'm
nanana.
peaceful, I'm
Il y a toujours le
angry,
même jeu
but there's always
qui bouge
this
pas.
I'm angry, I'm
Et pour qu'il
happy,
puisse y avoir toutes ces couleurs
and this I doesn't
émotionnelles qui se
move, and
présentent,
all those
il faut qu'il y
colorations,
ait
those
quelque
emotions
chose de stable et fixe,
that keeps on changing.
qui
You
soit
need to
toujours en
have
paix,
something that is always here,
complètement stable,
and
complètement en paix.
always stable
Pour
and
qu'il y ait des
peaceful
mouvements
for
émotionnels, il faut qu'il y ait quelque chose
emotional
de stable
movement
qui le rend.
motions to happen. You need to have
Si l'écran de cinéma il bougeait tout le temps, imaginons un écran qui
if
bouge,
the
ça,
white screen, the
un
movie
écran de cinéma,
screen kept
ça
on
serait
moving all
impossible
the time, it would be
le film
impossible
pourrait
to
pas se mettre.
project the
Pour que le
movie
film
on
là,
it.
de ce monde soit vu,
So
il
for
faut qu'il y ait
this
quelque chose qui est complètement stable,
movie
complètement fixe,
to be this movie to
y
be seen
compris
needs
dans l'état
a
d'éveil, état de rêve, état de
fixated
sommeil profond. C'est tout le temps là.
um,
Et ça voit
screen, and it's the same with deep sleep and dreams. It's always needing something that is not moving.
Entre les fonds où elle est immuable. Je me demandais bien ce que ça voulait dire. Et c'était après avoir ouvert les pages d'un bouquin de physique quantique où il y avait des
After
schémas.
reading a
J'avais
quantum
imprimé des
physics
schémas.
book, I saw some drawings, and I received a sort of message at 3 in the morning.
Ça arrive souvent à 3 heures du matin.
It happens often at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's moreover it happens spontaneously. So when we
Est-ce qu'on peut
lose
perdre la
life,
vie? Mais est-ce qu'on peut perdre la vie?
can we lose our life? Can we? I'm asking the question.
Bah, il y a la vie du corps.
Well, there's the
Mais
life of the
si on peut
body,
perdre la
but
vie, ça veut dire
can
on peut gagner la vie. Donc ça veut dire que quand tu
so
pas là
if you
avant de
can
naître, donc il y a
lose
quelque chose
life,
qui
that
a
means that
bougé
you've
nulle part,
gained
c'est ça.
it at some point, right? So it appears from nowhere.
Donc il y a une conscience
So
qui est
there's a
arrivée
consciousness
à
that
et
appeared
la
from
vie
nowhere,
émerge et puis après
and
la vie,
life
elle s'arrête.
emerges, and then life stops. Okay.
C'est plutôt quand on a peur de perdre la vie, ça veut dire que
when we are afraid of, we think we're losing something really.
Mais tu sais, ce qui est très intéressant,
We can't lose life because we are life. Like an animal needs fear to live, to not die. Yes, but it's to preserve the body. But if we were so afraid, how many are we on the planet? Like 7 billion?
Il y a 7 milliards d'humains qui savent tous qu'ils vont
So
perdre la vie.
7 billion people on the planet know that they're gonna lose their life. Doesn't feel like they're too afraid about it.
Les humains, en fait, la plupart du temps, ils oublient ça.
Most of the time people forget about it. And you know why?
Parce qu'en Inde, on dit quitter le corps.
That we're gonna exit the body, like they say in India.
Ça s'inquiète pas du tout de ça.
You know why they don't really worry about that?
Non, ça dépend pas des circonstances. C'est que tout le monde sait au fond de lui qu'il est éternel.
Exactement.
It's because actually everyone deep down knows that they are eternal. I know that I've felt it and like thinking very strongly that I thought like 100 years ago I wasn't existing, and in 100 years from now it won't. This body won't be here, but yet there was something in me that knew.
Cette peur, elle vient de l'identification au corps. Et c'est justement le
This
petit moi qui
fear
fait que
comes
ça
from
se
this
termine.
identification to the body. It's because the ego tells the story that his story is going to stop, its story is going to stop. What's certain is what we are going to lose our body. Yes, but it's not yours in the beginning, so
Ouais, en même temps, tu possèdes pas ton corps. Puis ça change de forme, quoi.
it keeps on
Dans
changing,
la conscience toujours, quoi.
changing form.
Que même quand on dit, ah bah,
In
tiens,
consciousness
on
still.
la terre haute,
Like, you know,
justement,
the body is rotting under the ground, but it's still consciousness, and it's just changing forms.
Mais tu sais, la mort n'est pas le contraire de la vie. En Occident, on dit il y a la vie et
Death
la mort.
is not the contrary of life.
La vie n'a pas de contraire.
Life doesn't have any contrary. The contrary to death is birth.
La vie ne meurt pas.
But life doesn't die. There's no end to life.
Et même au niveau du corps physique,
Even
quand
to
le
the
corps s'arrête,
on the physical body level. As soon as the body stops working,
elle va reprendre ses droits, elle continue, quoi.
life is the body is secreting a lot of things, and
Il n'y a pas de mort
you know,
nulle part.
there's no death anywhere.
D'où vient cette peur? La peur du petit moi.
So where is this fear coming from? It's from the little me, the fear of disappearing, which is not funded really. There's no root to that really.
Dans le
But
sommeil profond, t'as
like, you know, every night you go into deep sleep, you kind of disappear every night really. And are you afraid of that?
dans le sommeil profond.
What happens while you're in deep sleep? I don't always remember, so
Les yogis en Inde disent que c'est l'état le plus intéressant à observer dans la vie, c'est le sommeil profond.
yogis in India keep saying that it's the most interesting
C'est quand même magique,
level
on va se coucher
or
le soir,
state
on est fatigué, on se réveille le lendemain, on est en plein temps. Il doit bien se passer un truc quand même.
to witness is deep sleep, because you go to sleep, you're tired, and you wake up and you feel good, you're regenerated. But what happens is you go back to what you are. It's you're free again, freed from the story. Whatever you live in your life in deep sleep doesn't touch you, doesn't move you. Even if you are told that you're going to be executed tomorrow, the day after, then in deep sleep you don't care. And so awakening is the state of deep sleep while being awake.
Maintenant, il faut juste voir ce qui empêche d'accepter ce qu'on est. Et c'est là, en fait, où...
Now we just need to see what's preventing us from seeing what we really are. Even on the spiritual path, I don't feel good. Oh, I'm going to go meditate. It's gonna feel better. I'm just going to extract myself from this discomfort. That's not how it works. You need to have a look at your fears and welcome everything, all of your fears. I'm just starting to think about rituals when death happens. So are they important? Well, I'm just wondering, really, is it necessary? Because I know that some traditions, it's really important to them. Maybe you can reassure them. Yeah. So maybe might be good for them that it's not that important. When I was 24, I did some astral projections and I saw my body first time on the bed. When you go on the other side, you don't really care for the body anymore. It's just like a piece of clothing, really. You just feel like going on the other, going to the other room. It's really like we make a big deal out of it, but it's just really going to the other room. You just see the body and all right. Rituals in general are more for people, for themselves. Depends, because if the person on the other side believes that it's going to help her or him, then yes, why not? If the person that is leaving, if they believe it, then it's important. But to those who are staying also, yeah, sure. There are beliefs that if there's no rituals, then people won't ascend, or. But most of the time, they are gonna ascend because there are people on the other side. We are being helped. Births and deaths is the same in a way. It's like when you die somewhere, it's a birth on the other side. So it's sad on the one side and happy on the other. Yeah, no trouble about that. Shouldn't be worried about that. And it's not an illusion. Yes, it is an illusion. Depends on what you realize. If you've realized your true nature, you just see the astral as the manifestation also. It's just that it's less materialistic. But you don't believe in it more than in the world. I did something like 15 experiences out of the body, but I just realized that that's not going to help me realize my true nature. So when we die, the ego is still there. We don't let go. We don't let go of the ego when we die. No, there's still this idea of me and an exterior and outside. That's the reason why Buddhists say that we exit the cycles of reincarnation, because there's no desire to reincarnate, to go through that duality, through that duality. You can still do it. You can do it consciously, of course, but many traditions say that at the moment of death, we can realize our true nature. It can happen. Yes, but all sages in India say that I do advise you on realizing what you are before death. But yes, that's true. You can. Because the ego can actually crack open in a way. Realization is definitive ending of the story of a me. There's no more movie, there's no more time.
Donc, c'est au moment de la mort, l'ego peut tellement,
So at the moment of
avec
death,
la peur, peut tellement
with
ne
the
pas supporter
fear
ça,
coming
que
in,
ça craque, en fait. Et là,
the
la
ego can
conscience se révèle.
crack
Ça se fait, ça peut se
crack
faire
open and
comme ça.
realization
Mais
can
bon,
happen.
plutôt, vaut mieux le réaliser avant et
Rather-
vivre cette vie tranquille en tant que spectateur, plutôt que
Rather, realize it while
que
being,
réussir en tant que
alive
comme
and
ça,
just
en
enjoy
disant,
life
pourquoi
as a
j'ai perdu,
spectator and you just play
plutôt que de croire à fond
all day long,
dans notre
rather than believing
C'est ça.
hard in your
Hypothétique.
plus tard, ce sera
in your
mieux.
story and believing that it's going to be better later on.
Après, vous serez dans l'astral et vous serez plus dans le plus corps.
Après, tu
C'est la dernière fois. Pas forcément.
Non,
Ah,
l'astral.
pas forcément.
Vous serez où après?
Il n'y a pas que l'astral, il y a le
Et il n'y a pas
physique,
jusqu'à où.
Oui.
So where will you be when your body's
Il n'y a pas où, mais tout le monde.
there's no where,
Déjà, donc du coup, c'est pas.
but it's the same for everyone. It's the same for you. Doesn't matter.
Il n'y a pas de
Ouais.
différence.
There's no difference.
Tu vois, il n'y a pas de hiérarchie.
There's no hierarchies because I'm still in my little me, little ego.
Est-ce que c'est ce petit moi qui voudra
S'il
revenir
n'y a pas réalisation
I will come back
absolue,
if
il
there's
va y avoir
no
à nouveau,
absolute realization, like the self-realization. Yes, you can still, you can keep on going with reincarnating.
Après, l'être parfaitement qui a réalisé la pure conscience
But-
revient.
One who has
vient,
realized
peut
his
revenir,
absolute nature
tu vois, comme un
can
bodhisattva,
come
par
back
exemple.
like a
C'est
bodhisattva,
vraiment un choix, quoi. Enfin,
but it's a
c'est
choice,
conscient, c'est conscientisé.
fully
Il est
conscious.
pure conscience, donc il est plus
He is
assujetti,
fully
en fait,
conscious,
au
he is
système
fully aware of being
d'incarnation et
full
désincarnation.
consciousness.
Donc,
So
plus,
it's
pas dedans.
outside,
Et après,
absolutely
il y a
outside
plein
of
de
cycles of
paramètres, plein de
reincarnation.
choses, mais entre autres,
But so masters
les
talk
êtres
about a lot of
réalisés
things, but
soi,
but
la
people
soi,
who
quand tu- dans tes-
when
quand
one
tu
has
dors dans
realized
certaines,
it's
il y a plein de
this
possibilités, quoi.
has
On dit
self-realized,
des fois dans certains
there's a lot
enseignements
of
que
different
tu fusionnes avec
possibilities
le tout,
you can
que d'autres vont gérer autre chose, je sais pas.
merge with
Ça,
the
c'est plein de choses. Tout est
with the
possible, quoi, en
whole,
fait.
or
Tout est possible. Mais il se réincarne
but
sur
everything
Terre
is
s'il le
possible
souhaite.
in it. But they can reincarnate on this earth if they feel like it. But it's not a cycle anymore.
Plus là-dedans.
Not in this anymore. They're not caught in that anymore.
Est-ce qu'ils peuvent oublier qui ils sont?
Can they forget what they are?
Pas quand ils ont réalisé.
No, not when it's fully realized. It's not possible to forget where you are.
C'est plus possible, ça.
When it's really realized, you can't forget it afterwards.
Quand il y a réalisation de l'absolu, ça n'est pas possible. Parce que
When there
toutes les
is
croyances, toutes les identifications,
self-realization,
tout ça a disparu, tous les
all
masques,
identifications,
tout ça
all
disparaît. Il n'y a
masks,
que l'essentiel.
all
Il y a que
stories
maintenant,
have
que la vérité
disappeared.
devient grand V. Donc c'est
All
pas
there
possible.
is truth with capital T.
L'amnésie spirituelle, elle existe
All
plus.
that
Le voile
is
d'opacité,
left
la
is
Maya,
the
l'illusion, ça existe
essential.
plus. Tout ça,
Like the
c'est-
Maya, the illusion
il y a
is
plus de karma,
consumed.
puisque,
There's no more
en fait,
karma,
le karma n'existe que parce que vous ne savez
because
pas que vous êtes
karma
parfait et réalisé.
exists only because you don't know that you are already perfect and realized. When you realize it,
Il y a
your
plus de place
divine
pour le
nature,
karma.
there's no
C'est pas
room
possible.
for karma anymore.
Et il n'y a pas de où.
And there's no where.
Il n'y a,
Il y a
pas
pas de
où.
lieu.
Non, mais
Il y a
même,
même pas de
même là, dans ton expérience, parce
Ouais,
que là,
c'est ça.
quand
Even
tu
now,
t'en
in your
reviens,
direct
t'es persuadé
experience,
d'être là où t'es, dans
you
ton corps,
think
mais
that
c'est
you are where you are in your body, but it's just a
Tu
mind
penses, je
saying
suis
something like
là,
that. You
et
think,
là, c'est
I am here,
l'extérieur, mais c'est
and this
mental.
is the
Si
outside,
t'enlèves,
but this is only the mind speaking.
je
But
suis
but
moi la
take
personne
away
ici et là,
this idea
en
of
fait,
I
il n'y a
am
pas de où.
this
Le
person,
décor et toi, c'est
you'll see that there's
complètement un.
no
Regarde
where.
où tu es quand tu regardes un film.
Where are you when you
Si je te
watch
dis
a
arrête
movie?
sur image à un moment donné où tu es à fond dans le film, d'ailleurs,
If
tu
I
dis,
was
je suis dans le
to
film,
I was
suis,
to freeze while you're watching a movie
la
at some
conscience elle est
point,
partout.
and you
C'est
are caught in it,
quelque part tu
and
la mets
then
où tu veux.
actually we're saying
Tu
that
vois,
we are
tu
in
la
the
mets où
movie.
tu veux.
So consciousness is exactly where you
Il n'y a
want
pas
it
de
to be.
où.
There's no
Tu vois.
where.
Tu vois, le où est un concept.
Where is just a
Pourquoi-
concept. There's no separation. No, there isn't separation.
Pourquoi tu regardes ta main et tu dis
Why
c'est
do you
moi,
look at
je
your
suis dans la
hand
lumière.
and
Pourquoi tu regardes la table
this is me,
Tu dis pas,
this is
c'est
my
moi, je suis
hand,
dans la table. Alors, c'est
and
pareil, c'est un objet vu.
you see the table and you don't say
Il y a
that
le
this is
système
me,
nerveux,
but
peut-être,
it's the
mais
same thing. You see it the same way you see your hand.
On n'a pas l'habitude
We're not used to say this.
on peut pas, enfin, dans notre éducation depuis très
Ouais.
This is our education. we haven't been taught to compare our hand to a table. Like a hand is human and a chair is an object, is wood. It's not living like a chair. It's not like on a human level. Yes, but that's just a way that we've been taught. It's a teaching that we've received, and all of that creates distancing from what we are. Yes, absolutely. It is creating duality. It is still very hard to not get caught in that. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's just a belief, thinking that it's hard. It's just a belief. I don't know how to talk anymore now. Well, I still can't identify myself with a chair, so. Makes me think of the spiritism, like turning tables and this is matter. Quantum physics says it. Like everything is made of pure energy. It's the same. I just want to come back to a word that was evoked yesterday about vibration. When there's an emotion, so an emotion generates vibrations on a certain frequency. Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's not mental. There are emotions that drags you down, and when you're in love, it elevates you. So it's quite concrete. It's a physical level. So are we capable?
Oui, je sais que la réponse est dans la question. Oui, on les ressent, mais on les ressent pas forcément en tant que vibration.
So we feel them, but are we capable of feeling them as vibrations? I know that the answer is in the question, but it is important to go at the very heart of experiences. Reason why being meditating a lot without going at the heart of experience, it's if we do that, if we go at the heart of it, we realize that everything is the same. It's just vibration. As soon as you, but in the end, all that we perceive is just illusion. Yes, if it's perceived, yes, it's an illusion. Again, it's what we add on the experience. During yoga class, I was saying about this experience of rubbing your hands with taking out the concept of hands. If you do that with your eyes closed, in direct experience, if you go deep into the experience, take away the labels of hands and rubbing and just feel it, and you'll see that it's just vibration. Every time we touch something, when we see, when we hear, all these vibration. It's the magic of identification. It's that creates contours and limits everywhere.
Deux personnes vont voir la même chose, ou c'est la notion d'illusion et de ce qu'on voit ou qu'on croit voir en tout cas.
What we think that we see, this notion of illusion, like we see a table right here.
Enfin, il y a un truc. Qu'est-ce que c'est exactement? Qu'est-ce qui est perçu?
What is perceived from, for you, on the relative level, it is perceived as a table. And every person will see the same, right? Yes, but if you abstract this physical seeing with this conceptualizing and analysis, And if you look from the absolute, your experience, you'll see the formless. All of that is formless. So what about blind people? It's way easier for them. He's not blocked with his interpretations of what he's saying. Depends. Depends on how he developed his senses and how he's using his senses. If his senses are not interiorized, if it's projected outside, he is going to be caught into illusion. But all the senses are developed more. But it doesn't mean anything. Being blind doesn't mean that you don't get caught. So what about vibration, like, frequencies about being sad? It is only a belief to think that if we have high frequencies, we're going to get closer and to enlightenment. Yes, it is. Lots of spiritual paths that talks about, purification and elevating the frequencies, but it's an illusion. It's a vibration is perceivable, so it's a thing, so it's not what we are. What we are is outside of whatever can fluctuate, whatever object. If you take away right now, anything that can fluctuate, what's left is it. And if you say that nothing is left, then go and see. So what is nothing made of? What does it mean? How is it? This silence, this presence, how is it? And go really into it, up to the very end of it. How can we do to be able to go and see it? How can we go and see it? Just authorize yourself. There's no barrier that keeps you from it. It's very simple. With the heart. Yes, absolutely. Can happen sometimes. It's not permanent. Yeah, it does happen. So when it happens, it's important. If it's not permanent, then try not to get that again. But yes, it can appear spontaneously. In moments you're not looking for it, you don't expect it, and then poof. Yeah, it can be. It's very beautiful. Yes. In India, they use this technique, which is called neti, which is not this, not that. It can help you discern and really, whatever fluctuates, every time I'm not this, it's fluctuating, so I'm not this, not that. Whatever you see, it's not what you are. So you need to be conscious all the time in your life. Yes, being conscious and aware of everything. Yes. By the end, few months before the shift, I was asking myself, what is stable? What is always here in the experience? What is at the very origin of things? And whatever I was doing, I was asking myself that. And I kept on doing all my practices, like quite traditional, like, mantra, chanting, or repeating the name of God. I was practicing with French mantras, like the one from Saint Francis from Assisi, my God, my all, my whole. At the very end, every time I was doing this, I could I was doing it like, my God,
Mon Dieu,
something was saying, yes,
désolé,
I'm
c'est
here, I'm already
en fait,
here.
mais c'est par amour, si tu veux. Enfin, peu
And
importe ce que
it
tu
was
dis,
just
tant que t'es dans l'amour,
really
ça marche toujours.
going from love, so
Peu
coming
importe,
from
que
love. So
tu-
whatever you say, it's
que tu
just
sois
as long
avec
as
Jésus, que
it's
tu sois avec peu
whatever, if
importe,
it's
ça
Jesus
fonctionne.
or
Vous appelez
someone
n'importe
else,
quel
whatever,
nom
whatever
de Dieu,
name.
c'est comme ça qu'on dit en Inde. Et on dit en Inde, c'est la voie la plus rapide.
And in India, they say that it's the quickest way, but
C'est ça qui me faisait penser à l'amour en fait. Parce que moi je disais Vasudeva.
Oui, peu importe.
whatever the name.
Mais j'avais pas fait le lien vraiment avec l'amour, tu vois, je crois.
Non, mais
En
quand
fait,
tu le
quand même,
fais,
ça faisait quand même de
ouais.
l'effet.
Oui, c'est ça.
Donc tu te faisais
I could feel a
Ça
lot
fait un
of
effet,
emotions
ça
when
fait
I
quelque
was
chose. Tu
repeating
sens
this
plus de
name.
présence,
Yes,
tu sens
you
quelque
can
chose.
feel more
Jusqu'au jour où, en
presence.
fait, ça paraît absurde. Parce
And
qu'il
then up to a
ça
point where you
s'impose,
feel
c'est
like
toi.
it's
Oui,
absurd because
Voilà.
you realize that it's
Et
you.
donc, je pouvais plus faire ça.
So I couldn't
J'avais
do that
tout à
anymore.
arrêter.
So I just stopped.
Et puis, en fait, c'est une voie, c'est vraiment comme une, ouais, c'est vraiment une voie d'amour parce que c'est comme une
It's really a
relation
path of love.
qui va jusqu'à la fusion, quoi.
It's
C'est ce qu'on cherche tous,
we
à travers les objets, à travers les relations, à travers. On cherche à fusionner tout le temps.
we seek some sort of fusion. This is what we're looking for, like unifying. So I should be repeating that. Yes, and if your heart says so, then yes.
C'est la croyance qui fait que tu continues, quoi, c'est ça.
Ça peut.
Ouais. Comment rester tout le temps avec le cœur, là, tout le temps.
How can you stay with the heart all the time? You just come back,
Conscientiser ici.
being conscious there, from there.
Elle est toujours dans la conscience. Quoi qu'il arrive.
Bien sûr. Bien sûr.
Quand on cherche à comprendre ce qui se passe à l'intérieur,
When we start analyzing and try to understand what's happening inside,
on dit voilà, je suis en colère.
I can see that I'm angry, or so it's just concepts.
Donc, du coup, en fait, je m'emmène tout seul.
So in a way, I'm kind of tricking myself again. Yes, you're going back into patterns and identifications and conditionings.
Oui, mais
So,
simplement de l'accueillir. C'est-à-dire prendre
yeah, there's
conscience
nothing more to
que
do
c'est-
than
que c'est
just
là, ça
welcome
vient.
it. Just being conscious that, yes, this is here. It's like a thought.
Prendre conscience sans conceptualiser.
To be conscious without conceptualizing.
C'est resté quoi?
So
Non.
it's
Non, non, c'est
try to be
pas
out of
c'est très
focus.
clair.
No. On the contrary, it's to be very focused. It's to realize it's just something arising. It's just welcoming it. You don't try to define it or explain it. We don't try and see if it's a sensation or.
À partir du moment où tu l'accueilles,
As soon as you welcome
déjà,
it,
ça, tu vois, il se passe quelque chose de profond.
something quite deep
Tu
happens
t'autorises à l'accepter.
because you
Tu le regardes.
authorize yourself to welcome it.
Hein? Si, en
I
toi,
don't know what I'm
tu le regardes,
welcoming.
tu laisses
Yes,
faire, tu laisses
actually,
passer
you
jusqu'à
do.
ta
As
conscience
soon as
éveille,
it happens, you're welcoming it.
ça a lieu.
It
Sans que tu
happens.
poses une explication dessus.
There's no need for
Sans essayer de
explanations
le définir.
on it or definitions on it. It does happen.
En quoi ça va améliorer ton expérience d'avoir une explication
And
mentale de l'expérience?
how is it
Quand tu
gonna
sens quelque
make your
chose-
experience? How is your experience gonna be better if you know what's happening?
Enfin, je sais pas, quand on construit une maison, on enlève d'abord les poutres. Enfin, si je sais
Well,
pas,
if I build a house, I like to know where the beams are.
Ça se révèle de soi-même.
It's revealing itself by itself.
Ça
Actually,
devient une évidence.
it becomes some sort of evidence, obviousness.
Quand tu l'accueilles,
When you welcome it,
automatiquement en toi, ça voit.
automatically something in you sees it's evident.
Ouais, c'est ça, la conscience.
Consciousness
Voilà,
sees.
ça sait, en fait.
It knows
Il y a pas
without
concept,
words.
il y a pas
Yes,
besoin de concept.
yes. It's conceptless.
C'est ça qu'on appelle le lâcher prise.
Is it what we call the letting go of things?
Arrêter de vouloir des
Trying not to
Donc,
grab
ça, oui.
things. Yes.
Arrêter de mettre des définitions, des explications. oui, ça,
Stopping, not trying to put any definitions or.
Vraiment dans l'accueil pour tout.
Yes, we just need to be welcoming everything
Sans y mettre de résistance.
without resistance, without any kind of resistance, because as soon as there's resistance, there's a tension arising.
Non, non,
Jusqu'à temps qu'on ait
on accueille.
So we just
La
welcome,
compréhension,
yes.
Elle viendra.
Comprehension will come up.
pas s'imposer par elle-même.
It imposes itself by itself,
Et c'est souvent très simple.
and it's often quite simple.
C'est pour ça qu'on est là.
This is the reason why we're here.
Est-ce que ça demande de l'effort
So does it need some sort of effort?
Oui.
Le lâcher prise,
Letting go,
ultime, c'est vraiment
the
quand
ultimate
on
letting
arrête
go of
avec-
things is
ça
when
se fait pas
we...
avec l'idée je suis une personne qui fait l'acte de lâcher.
It's actually
Pas
not
possible.
happening with, you know,
Le
a
petit
me
moi, il a beaucoup de
doing
mal à
something. The
lâcher.
little me
C'est partie de
has
son histoire
trouble letting
personnelle de
go
vivre, par
of
exemple, des
things.
émotions.
It
Il y a
is
plein
part
de
of this
gens,
story to be living,
tu
you know,
vas
lots
lâcher
of
émotionnel,
emotions.
ah bah non,
People
c'est
will,
bien,
if you
faire sortir
say
les
people,
émotions, quoi, sinon-
say to people, just let go of your emotions.
Donc,
People will tell you, no, I
le-
like my emotions. I like having them.
En fait, la conscience accueille de fait. C'est
Consciousness,
ça qu'il faut
de facto,
bien
welcomes
réaliser.
everything.
Quand il y a... Ce qui se passe, c'est que l'émotion arrive.
What happens is an emotion
Normalement, ça
arises,
se manifeste, hop, et là, il y a conceptualisation, j'aime ou j'aime pas.
and then there's
Donc, si
a
je
sort
veux,
of
si c'est agréable,
conceptualizing,
c'est
like
bon,
I like,
on
I don't
laisse
like.
faire.
So if it's
Mais
good,
si je
it's
veux
like
pas,
no
je
problems, we'll
résiste.
let it
Et
happen.
plus je résiste, et plus
But
ça
when we
renvoie une
don't
couche.
like it, then it
Et plus
resists,
j'essaie de me voiler la
and
face,
the more I
la tension,
resist,
elle est là,
the more
elle va
layers
s'incarner dans le
there is,
corps,
and it's going to incarnate into the
vraiment,
body, like
viscéralement.
viscerally,
Et
and
ça
it's
va pas
not going to go
partir,
away
comme
like
ça, hein.
this.
Tu peux refouler jusqu'à avoir des maladies.
You can
Donc une maladie,
repress
ça a un
up to
sens
the
aussi,
point
donc
of
une maladie,
having,
c'est pour
you know,
nous
illnesses,
dire qu'on
and illnesses have
on a
meaning.
refoulé,
Usually means that we've been repressing something.
Donc voilà, non, faut aller voir et l'accueil
So
se
we need
fait
to go and see, and
naturellement. En
welcoming
fait,
happens on its own,
enfin naturellement.
naturally.
D'autant
Well,
plus qu'on lâche
the
l'idée,
more we let go of the
moi,
idea
la
of
personne,
me, a little
je vais faire un
me,
effort pour
I
l'accueillir,
am
et à la
doing
fin,
an
on doit
effort
traverser,
to
c'est bon,
welcome,
l'émotion arrive,
the more we
elle
let go of that, the
traverse,
easier
elle passe.
it is, the more natural it is. You know, something just arises and just goes and passes. Well, sometimes, you know, welcome is something that is very, very hard, is quite hard. Well, what is the worst that can happen? You're not going to explode.
Qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Tu vas
What's going to
pleurer,
happen?
ok, bon,
You're
bah,
going to
je sais que dans
cry,
notre
all
culture,
right?
ça se fait pas.
I know that
Mais
in
parfois,
our culture
faut-
it's not
Si
very,
ça doit
you know,
pleurer,
good
ça pleure,
to
hein.
be...
Le corps, il a plein de systèmes pour évacuer. Il peut trembler, il peut pleurer.
The body has a lot of ways
fort,
to
ça fait,
express itself, like
et-
trembling,
et c'est
crying,
cool.
screaming,
Faut
and
laisser,
it's okay, it's cool,
faut
it's
laisser
all
faire
right.
ça, quoi.
C'est pour ça qu'il faut laisser tout.
That's the reason why
accueillir, quoi. De toute
we
façon,
just
la
have
conscience
to
le fait très
welcome.
naturellement.
Consciousness is actually doing it on its
Ouais,
own
tout
very
parce que-
naturally because it's welcoming everything because it is everything. So I can't do that differently. It's we just have to let it do its
On
thing
devient expert en,
without
excuse-moi, on devient
think-
expert en
without
en
thinking too much.
funambulisme, en fait.
We
Tu sais, on
kind
essaie d'être
of
sur un truc
become
comme ça, on se dit, non, faut pas que je
experts
tombe,
on
faut pas que je pleure et
funambulism.
tout, je suis là,
Like
tu sais, on se
I
serre les
need not
fesses.
to
Surtout pas que je
cry
tombe dans
and
le
not to
filet.
get angry. I really
Et en
need
fait,
not
il y a
to
tout ce qu'il faut en dessous, hein. Il y a le filet, c'est déjà prêt, tu peux y aller, en plus c'est un mètre du
to
sol,
fall
en fait.
into all those emotions, but you can actually let go
Donc,
because there is a
sauce-toi,
nest,
reste pas sur le fil, c'est
and you are very, very in the end you are very
accepte
close
de
to the
tomber,
ground.
quoi.
So
Accepte de tomber.
just
Tu tombes pas.
Ouais, tu
just
tombes
just
pas.
accept the
C'est ça
fall.
le truc. c'est-
Ou plutôt, il n'y a jamais de fond, là, je suis
You're not
tombé.
really falling,
Et,
or the truth is
il n'y a pas de fond,
there's no
donc c'est
bottom to
cool.
this falling.
Tu te feras jamais mal, quoi.
You'll never get hurt. You'll never hurt yourself if you let go. Well, I'm just thinking if it's anger,
Mais
it's the same.
attention, accueillir un désir, par exemple, pour accueillir une colère, ça ne veut pas dire que tu le fais. Ça
Welcoming
veut
a
pas
desire, welcoming an anger doesn't mean that you have to do it.
rester
It's
ici
just
maintenant, dans le
welcoming it
corps,
is
voir
it
comment
means
ça se
being
manifeste.
here,
Si
right
on
now, and see
concepte,
in the bodies how it expresses itself without adding
t'as pas besoin de rajouter des couches d'histoire,
concepts or,
salaud, etc. Non,
you know, like the story explaining why you're angry. But usually we already know why we're angry.
Et c'est le corps qui va,
But anyway,
qui va transmuter. Mais le corps
so
est fait pour
the
ça.
body is
C'est
gonna
l'instrument
transmute.
de transmutation, c'est l'instrument qui
The,
fait
the body is actually
la pierre
the tool
philosophale,
to
quoi. C'est ça
of transmutation.
c'est un peu
of
notre outil alchimique, on pourrait dire ça.
It
Ça
is
transforme l'eau en lumière, quoi.
alchemical
La conscience, c'est la lumière.
stone
Le
in a
corps, c'est
way.
le creuset, on va dire, ou le cœur, même, on pourrait dire. Et ça se fait en allant voir là, ici, quoi. En allant voir là. Et en
And
restant maintenant
it
surtout
does
pas
happen,
juste
this
comme ça.
alchemical
Et,
phenomenon
c'est maintenant
happens
qu'il guérit,
just
c'est le
by
présent.
letting the
Chaque fois qu'on est dans le passé,
heart
on part dans les
see
regrets,
and
chaque fois
feel
qu'on est dans le
things,
futur, on
and
part dans les préoccupations, etc. Donc maintenant guérit, en fait.
but
Totalement.
now does repair,
La
and
souffrance a à voir avec toujours
everything,
à voir avec
suffering,
le temps, à voir avec
always have to
l'histoire.
do with the story and time.
Regarde, si t'es maintenant, est-ce qu'il peut y avoir de la colère?
look, if you are now, can you be angry if you're really now?
C'est vraiment maintenant.
If you're really now,
Le gars qui t'a
it's
fait
not
le queue de poisson
possible.
il y a
The guy
il y a
who
30
actually
secondes,
cut you
hop,
on
si t'es
cut
maintenant,
cut
30
your
secondes,
line
c'est déjà une éternité pour toi.
was, like 30 seconds
C'est
ago.
déjà
It's
plus là.
just an eternity. It's not here anymore. So you
Parce
can't
que,
be
en
angry.
général,
I
le
don't
process,
mean
c'est qu'il y a un
generally.
temps d'évacuation de
Generally,
l'émotion,
there is
on
an
va dire.
amount of time
Et plus
helping
ça
you
va, plus ce
to
temps se réduit.
decompress or
Et
evacuate.
après,
And
la
the more and
réalisation
more
du soi,
you,
il n'y a plus
you
ça.
welcome things,
Ça
the
émerge.
shorter this time becomes. And
L'autre jour, il y a
after the
Suzanne que
shift,
j'aime
this
beaucoup à la
latency
banque.
disappears.
Et
On an entirely different
sans
topic.
transition.
One day I wanted some mint tea and hadn't
Et je me faisais
any
tous les jours
at
d'aller chercher
home,
ma
so
tisane à la menthe.
was
Et
very
du coup,
happy
il
to
vient
go
un réunion,
go
tout
shopping
content,
for
il
it.
a plus la tisane à la menthe.
And at the
Et
shop,
là,
I see that
et en fait,
there isn't
je vois un petit mouvement
mint tea
intérieur
anymore.
fait
And I can see inside there's a tiny movement
et en
inside
fait,
that
ça
is
fait
like,
comme ça. C'est juste pas
and
une
I was it was very funny to see because
c'est juste,
it
tu
just
vois,
it did something like
une petite, donc après, tu rigoles.
it's really
Tu
nothing.
rigoles
It's
des jeux, de l'ego, du
so
mental, des trucs. Tu
after
vois
the
très
shift
bien que ça
you
se-
kind of laugh at all the games of the ego
Ouais.
and the mind. So what do you think about all the tools that exist? Like when I feel anger and I tell myself, well, this is for my own good. It's
Ça marche pas, tous les trucs de
it is not
concept,
gonna work because
ça marche pas.
all these concepts that's not gonna
C'est
work.
comme dire à quelqu'un qui
It's like
qui vit
telling
un truc
someone
hyper
that is
triste,
going
hyper,
through
intérieur, hyper
something
triste et tout, tu lui dis,
very, very
ah, mais il y a des gens
sad.
plus tristes que toi
And
sur Terre.
telling
Ça
him,
remonte,
you
ça
know,
aide.
there's people that are
Ça
sadder than you.
aide dans rien.
It's not
C'est pas avec
helping.
le mental que tu vas
It's not the
réussir
mind is never gonna
à transmuter une émotion, ça se fait pas comme ça.
transmute
C'est juste
an emotion. That's not how it
se laisser
works.
traverser, quoi.
It's just to
Et à
let
un moment
things
donné, tu
go
vas te
through
rendre
you.
compte que ce que tu
And
es
at some
n'est
point you
jamais touché.
realize that what you are is never moved and touched.
Ouais,
And you'll realize that it's not your emotion. Yeah,
Ouais, c'est ça.
absolutely. It becomes an emotion. Yes,
Tu
indeed.
passes de je suis triste
You
à
go
il y a
from I am
apparition
sad
de tristesse. Il y a
to
tristesse.
there is apparition or there's sadness appearing.
Ouais.
Ouais, une autre perspective.
It's another perspective, yes, indeed.
J'ai vu un paradoxe l'autre jour en fait parce que je me sentais mal et
I saw paradox the other day,
ce qu'il y avait derrière,
and I was trying to go behind
d'être présent à ça
and being present to that.
et le truc après bon ça m'aidait pas à aller mieux sur le court terme mais
Wasn't helping me on short terms,
sentir l'unité avec les autres
but it helped me feel this unity with others,
le fait de
paradoxically,
se sentir pas assez bien le fait de se sentir vulnérable le fait de se sentir
to feel very vulnerable and bad, and
c'est des choses qui sont très très communes en fait et
is quite common.
dans les autres et on a un sentiment
And I realized that everyone was going through that. I felt a unity in that.
moi en fait quelque chose qui était un
In this little me, there was something that was one. It's a bit weird. It's actually deeper. It's not weird at all. It's actually deeper than that.
Ça, c'est
It's
pareil, on s'autorise pas
we don't
à
allow
être
ourselves
vulnérable.
to be
On
vulnerable.
s'autorise pas à
We don't allow
justement à
ourselves
tomber dans ce
to fall into
comme un enfant en fait.
like a
Tu vois,
child,
à se laisser
to let
la
ourselves,
carapace
this
complètement
shell,
fissurée,
this
tu vois, laisser la carapace
let it fall down.
tomber quoi, tu vois. Et quand on en prend la saveur de ça,
When we
de goûter dans
savor
cette,
it,
de goûter à cette
when we
vulnérabilité,
taste this
et de se laisser
vulnerability
tomber,
and we
là, c'est
fall
là que
into
c'est
it,
vraiment,
this is when
en fait, il y a même une joie là-dedans.
there
parce
is
que
there is a
souvent,
joy in
il y
that.
a- Non, tu as contacté à quelque chose de plus profond que juste.
You've actually
le
touched
petit moi
something
ne peut
deeper
pas
in
ressentir
you.
l'unité, c'est pas possible.
The little me
Le
can't
petit
feel
moi,
the unity.
il
It's
vit
not
pour
possible.
lui-même, quoi.
It's the little me just lives for himself. So
Ouais.
there's no little me.
Ouais, c'était plus à voir avec de la
It
compassion,
had
ouais.
more to do
C'était plus
with
profond que ça.
compassion. It was deeper, yeah. Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
Souvent, c'est après des moments de souffrance quand même. Non
Oui.
Je sais pas si c'est
Oui, la plupart du temps, ça
Ouais,
peut
très souvent,
arriver comme ça. Ouais.
Most of the time, it comes through suffering, right? Yes.
Pourquoi?
Why? Do you think?
En fait, souvent la souffrance, surtout chez les personnes
Generally,
qui
suffering,
ont un appel du cœur, qui ont un appel à cette
especially
réalisation,
in persons and people who have this
vient
call
du fait
for
qu'il
the
y a une
truth.
réalisation à un moment donné que
There's
quel que soit
the,
ce que je fais dans ce monde, j'arriverai jamais à trouver le bonheur.
there's
par ce
a
biais-là.
comprehension that whatever I do in this world, I'll never get
Ça crée une
this
déprime,
happiness I'm
souvent.
looking for.
Et j'ai pas
And
encore
it
trouvé la
creates that
solution,
sort
donc
of
c'est des fois
depression,
ça,
you know, and
et j'en ai des
I
fois
don't
qui
know
m'appellent, ça dure
the
4 ans,
solution.
5 ans.
I
Des
don't know
déprimes
how
comme ça.
to.
On essaye d'avoir tant
It
bien
can
que mal
go
un
on
peu
for
le bonheur,
4,
donc c'est
5 years,
illusoire,
but
donc,
we try and get
donc
a
on
bit
n'y
of
croit plus, quoi.
happiness,
Et
but
donc il y a
we
une
know that
souffrance,
it's all an illusion.
ouais.
And so there is a lot of
Et,
suffering. Yes, indeed.
et là, ça nous pousse à sortir.
And it does
On sort
help
du
us
film, on est
to
obligé de sortir.
get
On doit
out
sortir
of the
d'ici.
movie, of exit this movie. We have
On sait
to.
que le suicide, ça marchera pas aussi. Parce
We
qu'on
we
pressent
know
que-
we know that suicide is not going to work either, because
Donc on se dit, mais où est-ce que je peux trouver le repos, quoi? Où est-ce que
And
je peux enfin
so,
m'installer et c'est stable.
where is it that I can find peace? Where can I settle?
Ça
And
arrive.
poof, happens sometimes.
Très souvent.
Often, yes, very often. It can bring us to some sort of madness at some point. Yeah, well, all of us are quite crazy, really. So, but when there's a loss of sense of meaning, that that deep, when we feel that disconnected, so not connected to anything, is it madness or it's because the mind and the little me doesn't know where to look, and the solution is to let go of the head, you know. When we go crazy, the self is always present, right? Yes, it's unchanged, yet the self is unmovable and immovable. So people who have been through psychiatry hospitals can come back from that. Yes. Yeah, I did have a lot of them coming to my place. Yes.
J'avais le cas d'une dame qui avait 30 ans de psychanalyse.
A woman came to me with like 30 years of psychoanalysis.
Ce qui lui a, à un moment donné, elle a eu une espèce d'évidence qui s'est.
And at some point, sort of obviousness and evidence.
C'est de me libérer de tout ça et faut que je sorte
What's
de ça. Mais c'est venu
obvious
spontanément, quoi.
is that I need to liberate myself from all of that, all those stories. So yes, it can happen. It was spontaneous. So it could be a good sign that we are depressed a bit. That means that something is cracking inside. Like, yes, that's. It is the purpose of it, really. That's. Everything is perfect in the body in this way. There's a sort of a sense of emptiness because there's so many things that have dropped. There is a sadness indeed because there's a force. There's a force of the little me that wants to run one way, to find his happiness this way. And there's the force of the self that is wishing to come back. And there's a friction that is uncomfortable. It doesn't end. It doesn't last. Doesn't last forever. Self is just. The mind is always going to try and bring you back to itself, to its ideas and beliefs, but it's not true. It's always going to try and make you think that you haven't seen everything. And even though there was nothing left, realization is to understand that even if there's absolutely nothing left, I'm still here, and nothing happens to me, and there's nothing, and it's okay. Yes, but a little me is kind of scared. Yeah, it doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to die. Yeah, I can see that it's resisting. So yes, it invents ideas and thoughts and.
C'est ça, on n'a pas besoin de valeur ajoutée, quoi. On n'a vraiment pas besoin de valeur ajoutée.
We don't need any added values, really. You said something about thoughts being always the same, pretty much. And Gerald, you just said something about, things happening spontaneously. So, kind of, is there a distinction between, what the mind hasn't been elaborating, so it spontaneously happens? So, I'm kind of wondering, is it an illusion when it happens spontaneously? No, but because there's no concepts in those moments. There's no actions and interventions from the mind in those moments. It's quite obvious that there's no new thoughts. How do we think from what we know already? Yes, but what is thoughts? It's either language, images, or sounds, right? Language, I do believe that you think in French, so and you've learned that, so it's not new, you've learned it. Images, usually it's always linked, connected to something from the past, a reference, a point of reference. And music or sounds that you've already experienced, all the colors that you think about, it's colors that you've all. If I tell you, think about a non-color, it's quite hard. Or think about transparent. I'm kind of teasing you right here.
C'est cool comme jeu parce que pour le mental, ça.
It's quite fun as a game because to the mind it's like, whoop. I could see everyone was like worked out. The mind just can't. Can the imaginary world be a path? Well, depends. To realize the self? No. It's illusion, so doesn't mean we can't play with it, but you can play with it. No worries about that. No problem. You can do whatever you want. A lot of things. Can we come back on about the little me and the ego that exist in temporality, like in birth and reincarnation, and on the physical, non-physical side, astral. And I realized I was really persuaded that the ego was linked and connected to the body. And
en fait, ce qui se passe, c'est pas vraiment important, essentiel, mais on va dire
what happens, even though it's not really important, but anyway,
des incarnations successives en général. En réalité, c'est pas vrai, il y a pas d'incarnation.
The truth is, there are no reincarnations. You are absolute consciousness that is everywhere. You're not in the body. You're not there. There's no where. But let's take this as an example. So there's consciousness that is focusing on a specific place that creates a little me, an ego, and after the death, there's still an idea of There's still an idea of a me, because when we come back, there are what we call vasanas, tendencies from the past. And so when we say that it's quite unfair because people, are born with, are so gifted with this or that, it's just because it's not unfairness. It has nothing to do with that. It's just because that they've been learning in past lives, and it's the same for you. It's but when you reincarnate again, the ego is becoming denser and denser and identify itself to a new character every time, especially with systems of relationships. Whatever you're being, whatever people are pointing to you and what you are pointing to people. So there is a sort of collective illusion. All right, let's say that you've been raised by your parents, and then you just suddenly you realize, I'm going to go on a journey around the world for 20 years, and so you've changed a lot, and you come back to your parents, and as soon as you come back, all of a sudden you come back to being that 20-year-old. When I went to India and I came back, I could see those patterns. Or
tu vois, il y a comme un ego collectif, enfin c'est pas un ego collectif, mais il y a comme une illusion collective. Quand tu reviens en France, il y a le...
Works with, even with countries. There's a sort of ego of the, a French ego in some sorts.
C'est pour ça que le voyage aussi, ça peut être une voie d'éveil aussi.
Journey can be a path to enlightenment.
Parce que quand tu voyages,
because when you travel,
quand tu vas en Inde, par exemple,
if you go to India, what you think are an absolute value, like absolutely true, well, you go to India and they'll believe the absolute contrary to that. It's not nice to be honking at people in France, and India, they actually ask for it. To them, there's no questioning about death. It's evident, obvious that there's no death. Whereas in France, we are so convinced that we have the truth. We are 70 million thinking that there's no death. There are more than 1 billion knowing that there's not. So, see? What I'm talking about is this ego coming back and back and back. I can see that I'm quite attached to my body. Yes, it is. It is linked to the body. There's always a me. On the other side, there's still the idea that I am here, or other ideas of sort of realizations. This little me is connected to all of our conditionings, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever the environment we live in, whatever the kind of life we've had. So it's absolutely linked to this moment of time of life, this life that we're living. Mm-hmm. Well, have a look at people who have had NDE, near-death experiences, and you'll see that 99% of them said that they had the same. They have in the astral, they have this same image of the body. So there's still a me that recreates the image of a body, but I also knew that you could change it, so I actually played with that. And I did. But That is the reason why when there's reincarnation, you come back to life, you get rebirth and reborn, and you still have some sort of tendencies from past lives. For instance, if you live the body with an addiction to food, well, you will grab on food when you come back. You will have this tendency, and that is the reason. That is the reason why we come back. This is why we say that desires to live this experience of incarnation that makes us come back and live, and there's no problem with that.
Je ne saurais peut-être pas l'expliquer, mais je vois le lien, quoi.
Mais ça, c'est encore du relatif. Hein. C'est complètement, c'est pas la vérité, c'est pas la réalité.
But that is still the relative level. That is not the truth.
C'est pas ce qu'on est réellement.
That is not what we are really. So what's the point in asking ourselves what we are? Well, to consciousness, there's no problem. Doesn't have any point. There's no problem with desires, or the problem is it appears like it is hurtful not to know what we are. You mean? Yeah, you could say that this way. To feel separate induces a hurt, a pain, a suffering. I know sages who don't answer this kind of questions. They would say something like, before taking care of your past lives, take care of your own right now, take care of what you are. So that means that whatever you do, those are just experiences, right? Yes. And that means that you also can do whatever experiences you feel like. Yes, absolutely. It's just a way for consciousness. Yes. And you are absolutely free to live whatever you want. Yes. There's absolutely no judgment. What we hear in religions, or that's not true, there's no judgments. The notion of sin doesn't exist. Whichever religion we choose, then it's okay. Yes. Yeah, you can even follow all of them if you feel like it. You can do whatever you want. You can experiment everything. So all of the laws, supposedly laws that rule the universe. Well, on the absolute point, there's no laws, but it does help to get some sort of directions. Or yes, indeed. Well, there is what's not going to work in your favor. I mean, it's not going to get you any happiness, but even this isn't true. In your heart, whatever the stories, whatever the Dharma, your heart will realize whatever you want. It might go... Even if you go through suffering or good experiences, realization will happen. I was thinking about you shall not kill, or but that's not true. Text like the Bhagavad Gita says that you can't kill and you can't be killed. You can actually go through that experience. I think of one American guy who went through some sort of gang confrontations, and he went to prison. And when in prison, revelations happened. So what's funny is people came from around the world to meet him. He stayed in prison for the rest of his life, but it wasn't a prison for him anymore. So there's no rule pre-established. Nothing is pre-established for realization. quite simple.
Qu'est-ce que je veux réellement
What
ici?
is it
Et
that I
après,
really
on
want
fait confiance
right
à la
here
vie
in the
et ça va
heart?
se faire.
And then you just
C'est
trust
sûr.
life that it's going to happen.
Sûr et certain.
That's
Ça peut pas-
absolutely
ça peut pas-
certain. Absolutely certain.
Ça peut pas louper le but, quoi. C'est
You
pas
can't
possible,
miss the
c'est-
point. It's not possible.
Mm.
Just focus on what the heart wants. It can't not be. It's already realized already, whatever you do.
Le concept de jugement, il existe que dans
So the concept of judgment
l'incarnation.
C'est une croyance. Ouais.
is
C'est-
only a
c'est
concept that
relatif,
exists in this
c'est
incarnation.
pas
Yes, indeed.
relatif.
It is relative.
Jugement,
Yes.
critique, comparaison.
Critics, comparison, judgment.
Une notion de volonté, d'intention.
Even a will or intention, those notions.
Oui.
Yes.
Mais est-ce que c'est personnel?
But is
Est-ce
it
que c'est
personal?
personnel?
Is it personal?
Ouais, c'est là le truc.
Est-ce que tu as le choix?
That's the thing. Do you have any choice?
Je prends un exemple très simple.
Let's
Hier,
take an
on a parlé
example.
de faire, pas faire,
Yesterday we're
notion de
talking
choix.
about doing,
Tu
not
sais, tu
doing,
peux
and the
choisir, par
notion
exemple,
of
ta vie, de passer
choice.
ta vie dans un hamac.
And you could choose to spend your whole life in a hammock, and stay still.
Conscience ne juge pas.
And consciousness is not judging. You could do that for your whole life. Your consciousness wouldn't judge that. But the only thing that there's a big chance that at some point something in you will get bored with that and will push you towards something else. And if you think about it, whatever the experiences that you go through as a human being, you can imagine being a billionaire or a superhuman like Superman or Batman. Well, you could be that, and you wouldn't be happy. It wouldn't be enough. Even Superman is depressive. It's not enough. You'll always need more and more and more up until you realize that you realize the self, and it's the very purpose of it. So one doesn't exist without the other. Relative and absolute. Yes and no.
On voudrait passer d'un truc à l'autre, mais en même temps, ça existe en même temps, quoi.
So
Ça me vient comme ça, il me semble.
Expliquer ça.
Ouais, ça c'est pas bien expliqué.
How to explain that? It's
En fait, dans la perspective
in
du soi,
this
il n'y a pas de
whole
différence.
or self perspective. There's no difference between the absolute and the relative. There's zero difference. Simply a comprehension, but there's no difference. So it's not that it can't explain, the one can't exist without the other. It's just that it's only one. There's no difference. But consciousness, it's this duality that. Yes, consciousness is actually experiencing this matter, this manifestation, but this matter is a projection from consciousness. It is also consciousness. We can't say that it's not consciousness. It is also consciousness. It's an other sort of. It's an other sort of comprehension that allows consciousness to experiment itself. There's always, both of them are always there together. And the multiple and the one are always together, and you can verify that right now. So right now there's a mind. Without realizing it, we are cutting through, little characters. So try and have a look at this image without any sort of cutting out, no forms, just one, no separation. If you take away this cutting out, like there's one person there, and if you take that away, then you see that everything is appearing within consciousness without any sort of differences. And that's the very direct experience that we're talking about. That's it. That's consciousness is living that this way. This is how it is being lived by consciousness. We don't realize it. We don't realize how quick the mind does that, this cutting out. And what's even more impressive is the mind is capable of adding stories on top of those cutting out. Like, so this person must be that kind of age, and the way it's clothed, it's telling stories and stories. But for being, there's nothing like that. It's very peaceful. This sensation that you, so to speak, this sensation of presence that you're living is actually exactly the same in every single one of you in this room, but in the same with the table or the space. And it's when it is realized, and it's never going to go through the mind, it's when this sensation is recognized, and in you and everywhere, when you realize that it is the same, that's awakening. And you can only just leave it through direct experience. It's not something mental. The mind is too much limited to experiment what is unlimited. You have to go through the heart. That's the only way. So you dissolve yourself, but you still think that there's someone who is dissolving himself. So that's the reason why it is unspeakable. The truth with a capital T, you can't talk about it. This reminds me of teachings where I was taught that in front of a problem you have to remember who, what, when, how. Well, you can discard the whole of that.
Carrément.
I would love to go back to my teacher and tell him, there's no point.
Ressources humaines, je crois. Ah oui. Oui. Non, résolution des problèmes. Ah oui. Spécialiste.
Ouais. Tous ces trucs-là, on y est tous passés. Hein. Ouais. On a eu
We all went through that.
On y est tous passés.
Des prépositions ou des...
All those teachings
liées au temps, liées au passé, liées au futur.
About time.
Temporalité, il y a toujours une temporalité.
Et même le pourquoi là, que tu as cité, parce que dans
Even
though, il y avoir un pourquoi moi, mais la vie n'a pas de pourquoi.
Even the why you were talking about, because you can have a why now, like why me, but there's no why in now.
Parce qu'en fait, il n'y a pas de raison.
There's no reasons.
Les gens aussi cherchent un sens.
People tend to look for a meaning, but they do that from the perspective of the relative. But there's no reasons, no meaning. That's the reason why they just need to welcome everything. I am quite attached to meaning. Then we could ask, who or what is attached to this meaning? One last question. Well, There are no questions.
Pourquoi il y aura un pourquoi?
Why would there be a why?
Non mais c'est vrai, à quoi sert une fleur dans un champ? À quoi sert la
What's the
nature?
point of a flower, you know,
Euh,
in the countryside? Why nature?
Est-ce qu'on a besoin d'avoir un pourquoi à la beauté, quoi? Est-ce qu'il y a besoin
Is
d'un
there a
pourquoi
need for a
à
why
l'amour, à la joie, à la paix?
in beauty or love or joy? There's no need
Être
for
n'a pas besoin de
whys.
Je dirais que c'est rassurant.
Being doesn't need a why.
Ça rassure le petit moi.
Well, yeah, it reassures
Pour
the little me.
Bah, parce que.
Because,
C'est l'ego.
Ouais.
but that's the ego talking.
En fait, ça sert à rien.
Ouais.
Indeed.
Oui, c'est ça.
Aussi.
To be right, to be... Yes, indeed.
Ouais.
On n'arrête pas de parler de l'ego, mais en fait, il n'existe pas.
We keep talking about the ego, but it
Tout à fait.
doesn't exist.
Ouais.
Indeed, there isn't any ego. We keep coming back to that ego, but it doesn't exist.
C'est un agrégat, ouais, un condensé de choses, mais il n'y a pas de...
It is
il y a pas
an
d'ego.
aggregate of
Si on regarde
thoughts
bien,
and beliefs,
le
but
corps
ego
peut
doesn't
changer,
exist.
on peut faire la chirurgie
because
esthétique, tout peut changer,
the
mais
body can
ça change pas
change,
le corps. Les
so we're
pensées,
not the
c'est pareil,
body.
c'est pas tout peut changer. L'émotionnel,
Thoughts
ça
are the
change.
same,
Il y a rien
emotions are the
de
same, they
stable,
keep
il y a pas de
changing all the time.
quelque chose qui...
It's not something
c'est même
stable.
pas quelque chose, il y a
It's not even
juste
something.
des...
It's not even a thing. It's
Vraiment
just,
une croyance.
it's
Ouais,
just
vraiment une croyance.
Vraiment une croyance.
Juste ça. Ouais.
accumulation of thoughts and beliefs.
Savoir si quand on était bébé, on est éveillé.
Are we awakened when we are
Puisque notre petit ego nous suit.
a baby?
Alors ça dépend pas tout à fait en fait.
Ouais, là il y a une nuance.
Ouais.
Pardon. Il y a un petit bémol.
Ouais. Il y a un petit bémol.
Ouais.
Well,
En fait, c'est avant l'âge de... Enfin, quand... en général, c'est vers... à partir de 3-4 mois, c'est là où commence à y avoir une densification qui se fait.
around
Mais
3 or
pour
4
le bébé,
months
il y a
old, there is
une
some sort of
accessibilité, comme tu dirais,
densification
qui est-
that
qui
happens
est
with the
très
mind.
facile,
C'est spontané,
Ouais.
c'est
But
évident.
beforehand, yes, there is this spontaneity of being and this consciousness. It is necessary to develop this ego because we need it to go beyond it. We've all been conditioned, educated, and if we don't educate a child, it becomes crazy. We have to go through a, so to speak, good ego to be able to transcend it. Is it making sense? Well, there's several questions there.
Si on lui donne pas d'amour.
Oui, c'est surtout.
Exactement. Oui, oui, tout à fait.
Parce qu'apparemment, c'est vrai que ça se fait, quoi.
Déjà, il y a toujours un ego, même après la réalisation.
There's
C'est un ego,
always an ego, even
qui
after
est nécessaire
awakening.
pour pouvoir,
It's
expérimenter ce
an
monde.
ego that is
Parce que l'ego aussi,
necessary
l'ego,
to
c'est
experiment
aussi
this world.
le sentiment, même si c'est un film, d'individualité. Et il y a besoin de ça.
It is an ego that is very, very tiny, but there is a sense of individuality to be able to share,
Tout comme il y a un mental.
to talk.
Voilà.
All sages are saying the same, that you need
C'est pas un ego
and
duquel tu es assujetti, puisque tu as compris
you
sa
need that
nature
ego to be able to.
illusoire, justement. Puisque tu as compris que tu n'étais pas ça.
Il sert juste à communiquer.
It's just a tool that helps
C'est
you
c'est un
communicate.
outil. C'est un outil. Tout comme une voiture est un outil, par exemple.
Like a tool,
Et, il y
a
souvent
car is a
qui est
tool,
identifié à l'outil,
and
c'est-à-dire,
if you are very
voiture,
identified to your
si
car,
tu connais
then
complètement en ayant un accident
I
de
know
voiture,
people who have been crying, seeing their car being
s'identifier totalement à la voiture,
crashed,
ma pauvre voiture. Et
and they
non,
say,
mais
"Oh,
rigolez
poor
pas,
car, my very, very poor car." And it's, yeah, some people can be very,
Et en fait, y a une identification.
They can be very, very sad with that, and because they're very identified. But if you know it for what it is, which is a tool, then it's just. And not everyone give their car a nickname either. Yes.
Voilà.
Exactement.
Sometimes it helps. We just need to transform it and use it as a partner in life, this ego. We can keep on the ego that is helping us to communicate, but letting go, we should let go of the stories. Yes, and we should avoid the duality of wanting to crush the ego. Yes, we should. Yeah, it just should be helping me make decisions, that's all. Everything is useful. Nothing is pushed away. At some point, we just realize that we don't need it, so it just drops. We can actually, entertain ourselves in sadness, and because we feel like we think that we need it, but at some point we realize that, but no, I don't need to be sad. And it's the same. It's the same with realization. It's like I don't need to be carrying this story all the time. Same with being a child. We have Legos, and we drop them to go to something else. Yes.
C'est bien l'exemple de Lego, justement.
Yeah, good example. Legos.
C'est très bien, quoi. On arrête de faire des constructions.
Stop making constructions. Yeah.
On peut dire que c'est un outil que se donne le soi pour se regarder d'un point de vue spécifique.
It's just a tool to be watching yourself from a certain point of view. That's great.